So let's first preview the Ohio State versus Oregon game. Now, like I stated in the opening, I was on a mini honeymoon slash I might have also forgot to set my alarm, and I woke up and I realized I missed the whole game of the Minnesota Ohio State game, which I was very disappointed. My wife, Rebecca, can tell you that because I woke up kind of frustrated at myself at 5 a.m. when she's probably half asleep. But that's besides the point. I did get to catch the game though. Luckily, I was able to rewatch the whole game. I was able to check in to see how Ohio State played. As many of you know, if you've watched the game, Ohio State it's like the defense is still the same, which scares me as a Ohio State fan, which I'll get into the kind of about the Oregon game in general. But the one thing I did notice from that game was just lack of experience, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they played well. They played hard. You know, Ryan Day said that in his post games, post conference. I mean, post game press conference. There we go. I mean, they played hard, but it showed again the struggles on the defensive backs, especially. But I mean, again, I can't completely pull that away just because, they're missing the top two cornerbacks. I mean, you can't really see much. I mean, the freshman guys that were in there, the young guys that haven't played a lot, they did a great job. I think you'll see a different team against Oregon. It's a big game. Not saying Minnesota wasn't a big game. That's a huge conference game, but this is a game that can really be a staple in your resume to prove to the College Football Playoff Committee that, hey, we're here to stay. We're here to play. And, we think about Clemson, who probably just put their nail in their coffin, possibly, in making the College Football Playoff, scoring 3 points, which I never thought I would say a Clemson team scoring 3 points. All credit to Georgia for that. But focusing back on the game, I thought I was very scared as I was watching that game. I saw kind of like the stats and everything, and I saw that we were down at half. So as I was watching, I just realized that, Stroud really struggled. I think some of these guys struggled. The running game was obviously Mayan Williams was just, it's awesome to see a guy his size to break open a run like that. I think the running game helped Stroud at least stay in the game in the first half. The defense also helped out a little bit as well. Not great, but they did. Stroud really struggled, but then to see him in the second half, the way he just threw the ball. And again, when you have a wide receiver core, I mean, you should literally be able to throw for 290 yards every single week. Just throwing it up there, those guys. You got to see Travion Henderson, who I said last week was going to be one of those guys that is going to sneakily, it's not sneaky because he's a 5-star recruit, but he's one of those guys that is not going to start by starting, but he's going to get on the field, and he showed why he is a top five recruit in the country. And now is he at Ohio State, who's probably the best freshman running back I've seen in quite a long time, probably since Maurice Claret. So that's what I noticed from last game. I also noticed that we struggled stopping the run, which also scares me because when you play in the Big Ten, you have some good backs. Obviously, Minnesota losing that guy, it's going to be tough for them. But moving on from kind of what I noticed from last game to previewing this week's game, you have number 3 Ohio State, who moved up in the polls this week, versus, I believe, 12 Oregon. Now, Oregon is one of those teams that I always just am going, Thibodeau, who's their best defensive player, also might be the best player in college football. Defensive end is hurt. I don't know if he's going to play. We'll see. This could change my total prediction then if that changes. But I'll be honest, Oregon's one of those teams that if Ohio State's not careful, can pull an upset in Columbus. Now, again, it's in Columbus, which I think gives Ohio State a little bit of advantage. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff, which also I think gives Ohio State advantage. But my keys this week, I have 3 keys this week to really, honestly, I think these keys can really make or break, Ohio State's game. I think one of the biggest keys for this week is Stroud. I think CJ Stroud has to be the quarterback of the second half. He can't even for half of the first half be the quarterback we saw in the first half. Indecisive, missing throws, the interception. I know it's a big game. He's a freshman or redshirt freshman. He's only played a few games. first passes were attempted last week. But the reason I say that is because I think, people know that the run game is going to be where Ohio State Ryan Day is going to dial up the passing game. I know for sure. But the run game is what's going to help Ohio State, set a tone, set a balance to the game. If you can make the run, obviously it opens up the passing game. And Ohio State is that talented on the offensive line. They can do that. They have great running backs, receivers that, you throw the ball. But if Stroud is not the Stroud we saw in the second half, then that's where I start getting to worry. Because then you put the pressure on the defense, which is my second key. The defense, especially the pass defense, needs to be better. It needs to be a lot better. The reason I say that is because, I'm wearing actually a football shirt. I was a assistant coach for a year at the high school level. And one thing I noticed about high school football is, if you can't stop the pass or stop the run, either one, you're in trouble. If you can't stop both, there goes your game. And I think it's very similar in college. I think you could sometimes survive if you have bad pass defense, like you saw Ohio State last week, or if you just have an amazing offense that just outscores. But my worry is that the bad pass defense, it just doesn't help Ohio State in any way, because then you open up also for a run game to be possibly there for Oregon. Now, I know Oregon has been one of those teams in the past that's kind of inconsistent when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. But, it's a top 12 team. They're going to come ready to play. They're going to play well. They're going to pass. They know they can pass if Ohio State doesn't have, the two top corners, if they don't have Cameron Brown, if they don't have, I'm blanking now. Yes, the other cornerback who's going to be a top 20 pick. But anyways, they don't have those two guys. Then that's when I start getting worried. Obviously, the pass defense scares me a lot because it hasn't really been figured out since last year, it seems like. So that's kind of my second key. And then my third key is winning the turnover battle. We saw last week, Haskell the Rascal, as Gus Johnson called him, taking it in for 6. Harrison obviously strip sack, a couple other plays here and there. You force more turnovers than the other team, you have a very, very good chance of winning. If Ohio State forces Oregon, let's say into 2 turnovers, and you turn one of those into points, you're up there in the chance of winning that game. I think Ohio State wins the turnover battle and they don't turn the ball over, I see, Ohio State walking out here with a victory. Part of me is hesitant to put the prediction score out there because that always tends to bite me. But, I personally believe that Ohio State's defense is going to wake up this week. I think you're going to see a team that of course is hearing the critics, hearing people say that, this defense is the same from last year, hearing me say that. They're not listening to me, but hearing me say that, people like me, I think they're going to wake up. I think they're going to stop Oregon for the most part. I think they're going to give up yards, but I think they're going to hold them. My prediction is Ohio State 38, Oregon 14. Some people might be saying Ohio State only 38 points. I think you got to give credit to Oregon's defense. You got the best pass rusher in the nation. If he plays, if he doesn't play, maybe you add more points, but they do have 2 top cornerbacks that are pretty good. We'll see. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but I still think it's going to be a 20-point win for Ohio State. I don't think Oregon can keep up with the offense of Ohio State. Even if let's say it's 38 to 28. I don't see how Oregon can consistently keep up every drive with Ohio State. Ohio State showed last week in the second half, they can do big play after big play after big play after big play. If that's the team that Oregon faced, the second half Ohio State team, this could easily be a 56-63 to 22 game. Like, I'm not kidding you when I say that. I know people are going to call me crazy, but I'm calling it now. If Ohio State can have the second half that they did against Minnesota, you could see 50 plus points put up on the board. I believe that. So I'm interested to see what happens. I don't know. We'll see. I also put my predictions for player of the games. My offensive player of the game or players of the game, my offensive player of the game will be Mayan Williams or running backs. I think running backs will set the tone for Ohio State. Like I said earlier, I think Maya Williams can have another big game. You have Master Teague, Crowley, Travion Henderson. I think, man, if this team is so loaded on the offensive side of the ball, they should win every game by 20 plus points if their defense plays well. My defensive player of the game is just honestly the DBs. I think if the DBs have a game half as good as what they did, against Minnesota. I mean, they didn't have a terrible game, but just a game that's more consistent, can keep them under, 250 yards passing, get a turnover here or there. I think that's where you can see Ohio State take advantage, and that could be, a player of the game or players of the game in a sense. Special teams. I think it's going to be the punt unit. I don't want them to punt a lot. I don't want Ohio State to punt a lot, but if they do, we all know that, change of possession is big, but then location, where are you starting are you starting inside the 20 or are you starting at the other team's, 48 yard line, So I think that's going to be a huge key for this game. And so those are my predictions. Those are my thoughts. Please let me know below. Do you hate them? Do you love them? Or do you just think I'm crazy? Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the comments. But that is my prediction, my preview of the Ohio State-Oregon game.